Joining us now from the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities is Angela Spino-Bogota, as well as Tracy Chirikas, once again joining us on the show. Thank you both for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate having you both on. So on your homepage for the coalition, the headline reads, "Did you know over 2,000 teens begin abusing prescription drugs every day?" Can you talk to us about the issue of prescription drug abuse and misuse and the different ways that may begin, particularly for these kids, the process of beginning to abuse these drugs and eventually maybe even becoming addicted to these drugs?
Well, if you don't mind, Angela, I'll take the lead on this. Sure. I think one of the interesting statistics on this is often our youth are prescribed due to a medical condition, and they are taking their medications as prescribed until it crosses over to this level of dependency on that medication. Why are we very honed in and concerned about this is there are so many pill pressings going on out in our communities. We need to be aware as a community that there are individuals illicitly pressing pills that look identical to those pills that we can get from the pharmacy. The problem is those pills are not manufactured in the pharmaceutical environment, but rather someone's kitchen, basement, garage, what have you. And so they're heavily adulterated. And that is truly what we are seeing in our communities right now is fentanyl adulterated prescription lookalike pills. Some of the things that we need to think about when it's concerning our youth is think about our own mindsets and behaviors. If I'm borrowing medication from a friend of mine, for example, because today I wound up with a migraine headache, I'm not asking my best friend what that chain of custody was with that medication. There's that unspoken trust. And with our youth, that is occurring as well. They have an unspoken trust and level of understanding where they believe their friends would never choose to harm them. And quite frankly, maybe their friend isn't even trying to harm them. So that is something that we really need to be aware of where our youth are concerned.
And so in terms of prevention, of course, we always hear about making sure that for adults in the home that they're properly storing these prescription drugs, that they're locking them away to get them out of reach of children that may either get to them out of curiosity if they're younger kids, or maybe seeking them out for misuse or abuse reasons if they're older, or vice versa. But what other preventative measures or intervention measures should be taken in the home if a parent is concerned that their kid may be either becoming dependent on these prescription drugs or may even be abusing these prescription drugs before it eventually gets to a point where they may be seeking pills from outside of those that are obtained through medical means?
Thank you. That's such an important question. I think one of the greatest things we can do as parents is, yes, our youth can read. Yes, they can follow instructions. However, with prescription medications, these are highly dangerous. We need to control how they are being administered. So when your loved one starts reaching out because their pain is breaking through sooner, rather than the time prescribed on that bottle, that is a first indication that a dependency may be starting to form in your loved one's scenario. So if that is the case, then you should be talking to your doctor rather quickly that, hey, my loved one's pain is breaking through sooner, yet you've prescribed it for every 3 hours. Now it's breaking through every 2 hours. And we know because of tolerance and the way opiates build up in the body, that tolerance builds up just as quickly.
And so let's bring in Angela Spino-Bogota. She is a certified prevention specialist and peer recovery mentor as well with the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities. Now, I mentioned before Tracy's previous comment, intervention. On the intervention front, if a parent particularly is concerned that their kid may be becoming more dependent on these drugs, or that they may be increasing their tolerance abnormally to these drugs, maybe even misusing or abusing them, obviously having a familial intervention or having some support system there that's helping to prevent misuse or abuse from becoming chronic is critical, but it's also a very sensitive matter that you want to approach in a way that, of course, is welcoming and is friendly and is supportive, but also needs to be done in a manner that is deliberate as well. How do you suggest that parents or families of people that may be misusing or abusing drugs approach making those initial interventions to help their loved one either escape the burden of drug use and misuse, or to help them if they are addicted to these prescription drugs?
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because having an addiction is something that has so much stigma that's attached to it. So what I encourage people to do is, number one, seek out professional help. This isn't something that you want to approach alone, or something that you want to do without the help of medical professionals, especially if somebody has already developed a substance use disorder. And it's something that oftentimes people think is attached to some sort of a moral failing, but really what it is it's a complete hijacking of the thinking process. And, it affects the brain's reward system in a way that, completely hijacks that thinking process. So what somebody would normally do when they're not using, you might see as a symptom during substance use. And so some of the symptoms might appear as though they're negative behaviors. However, it doesn't mean that that person is a bad person. So I highly encourage people to reach out for professional help. And I encourage them also to learn as much about a substance as they can. And I always say, like, non-judgmental help, right? For me, having that conversation, if a parent were to come up to me and say, listen, I want to help you. I'm not judging you. I'm here for you. We're not going to necessarily talk about the last time that you used. We're just going to figure out a way to get you some help, so yeah.
And what's great, too, is that an organization like yours, the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities, also provides support groups and information on providing that support in a way that is helpful and is sensitive to both the family member that's trying, or family members that are trying to help intervene in their loved one's substance use, misuse, or abuse, as well as the person that may be dealing with that misuse or abuse. And one of those programs is Shatter the Stigma and Family Support Meetings, which are held via Zoom every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. and Wednesday morning 10 a.m., as well as Thursdays at 7 p.m. Angela, we'll start with you. Can you talk about what goes on in these meetings and who they can be beneficial to as people are either themselves battling addiction or have a loved one that may be battling addiction?
Absolutely. So I will let Tracy take the family side of things on Thursday evenings, but the group on Tuesday mornings from 9:30 to 11 o'clock is Smart Recovery, and it is for the family side as well. But Smart Recovery is a science-based program to help people manage their recovery from any type of addictive behavior. So we are covering substance use, but we could be talking about anything like alcohol, nicotine, gambling, eating, self-harming, those types of behaviors as well. And Smart Recovery is based on a 4-point program. So it basically is helping people to decide if they have a problem. It builds and maintains motivation. It helps to cope with urges and temptations. And then the third point is managing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And then finally, helping people to live a balanced life. And it's based off of cognitive behavioral tools. And those cognitive behavioral tools are based off of a workbook that are available to participants within this group. And one of the things that we found through the COVID crisis is that we're able to facilitate these groups online and make them more available to people who might not be able to drive to get to these groups. And so we're able to do that on Tuesday mornings at 9:30.
We're joined by Angela Spino-Bogota, as well as Tracy Chirikas from the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities, and Tracy on the family front. Can you talk about how these meetings may be beneficial as families work together to address substance use and misuse issues?
Well, I think, thank you, number one. But number two, families can't help it because we are programmed from the birth of our children to basically become codependent on our children. We are there to supply their needs and help them fly in life. And the same is true when our loved one struggles with substance use disorder. We come alongside and we become just as sick as our loved one. And so Smart Recovery for Family and Friends is really a compilation between two programs. One is the Smart Recovery Program and one is the CRAFT, which stands for Community Reinforcement and Family Training. So SMART is skill-based, whereas CRAFT is evidence-based. And really what it's teaching us as family members is how to support our loved one in a healthy way. That's number one, because we've become very unhealthy. We become just as sick as our loved ones. We will clean up their messes. We will quickly, create all of this chaos so that others aren't pointing the finger because of shame and stigma, especially on that family side. So we really have a lot of work to do on our family side, the family and friends side, to be really good support team members of our loved ones. It is a family disease. It is not just, that individual. We all have things to learn about ourselves and collectively as groups. We follow the same 4-point system that Angela just mentioned. Ours just may look a little differently. Our urge to control the situation, for example, because that is the biggest thing in a family and friends. We want to control the outcome, which really is manipulative behavior. So we have to unlearn some of these same traits that our loved ones struggle with. We meet every Thursday night from 7 to 8:30. And really, as Angela said, it's addictive behavior. It's not just limited to substances. And, I think that they can lead to substances. Sure. But I think one of the things we need to remember, and really now that we're kind of post-COVID, but we're moving into the Omicron environment, a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms came about for all individuals in society. And I believe all individuals can benefit from just unlearning some of those unhealthy coping strategies that we navigated toward.
Yeah. Oh, please, Angela. Yeah.
I was going to say, sometimes it can be like that game whack-a-mole, you knock one thing down and another one pops up. But I had the pleasure of taking the family and friends training too. And I thought it was pretty amazing because one of the things I've never really been a huge fan of, and Kraft kind of talks about this a little bit, is the idea of like tough love. If it's a medical condition, I don't see how loving people less or pushing them away is going to help, right? And so I love that this program doesn't talk about tough love, but it talks about love and limits. And I can see how supporting people, like I love you, but I have to set limits for me and for you. And that just really made a whole lot of sense to me.
And we're joined by Tracy Chirikas and Angela Spino-Bogota on the Megacast. They are both with the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities. And so we talked in December before the new year about how the holidays can impact addiction and can impact the ways that we interact with those that may be dealing with substance misuse or substance abuse. As we're in the winter months, this time of the year in our area, especially given the weather, given the conditions outside, can also have an impact on mental health and certainly as well on substance use and misuse. What are some of the ways that we see at this time of the year that people that may be battling addictions may struggle more so than or differently? It's probably a better way to put it than in other times of the year where it's nicer outside or there's more activities to be done. And what can be done from the level of friends and family and coworkers and other people in their lives to help them weather this time of the year that can often be just as triggering as the few weeks of the holidays?
Right. Well, I think it's the weather. Number one, as you said, limited days where there are sunshine. We desperately need sunshine and to get outside and get that fresh air to help our serotonin levels and our dopamine levels. But some people do struggle with seasonal dissociative disorder, right? Where the lack sun. maybe that's as simple as, getting some kind of lamps and indirect lighting. But plugging into these support groups are so helpful because it's peer-led and peers gathering together to help one another, lift one another, and guide them through these situations that we're all confronted with time to time.
So Tracy, Angela, just another couple of minutes with the both of you before we'll say goodbye today. At this time, is there anything else that we should be keeping in mind now that we're in the new year and as we're going through the winter in terms of how we can help people in our lives that may be dealing with substance misuse, addiction, or if we are dealing with those issues ourselves?
Yeah, I would second what Tracy said when it comes to seasonal depression. I think that is a very real thing. I know I suffer from it. So I would also say keep an eye out for isolation. I always say addiction at the core of it, it really feeds it with isolation, and recovery is really all about connection. So, if you see one of your family members or friends slipping away, make that extra phone call, make that extra text, show up at their house, be there for them. And it's better to ask a question and be able to help someone than not ask the question and find out later that that person was in distress. So sometimes they can be uncomfortable and difficult conversations, but we'd rather have those than not show up for the people that we love.
Tracy, anything else?
No, I completely agree with what Angela said, and we are just a phone call away.
Well, we appreciate both of you. Appreciate your time and the information, as well as all the helpful advice for people that may be dealing with addiction or those that may be helping a loved one through addiction as well. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you. Have a great day.